The weather forecast is calling for snow. Everyone is excited about seeing the first flakes. All the kids are talking about being out of school and having snowball fights and sledding. Then it starts snowing, and it doesn't stop. A blizzard hits. The snow isn't fun anymore. When the storm calms, there are 40 inches of snow on the ground and not much food left in the pantry. John, the author and illustrator of this tale, is just a kid, but the only one light enough to walk on top of all that snow. The store is over a mile from his house. Will he be able to make it there and back on his tennis racket snowshoes and bring food to his family? What will he find on the way to the store? John is ready to have his own adventure in the snow.
What would happen if 2 hungry bears suddenly showed up in your town? Would they be welcomed with open arms? Or would folks flee, screaming their heads off? In Breaking News Bear Alert, you'll learn firsthand from an on-the-scene news crew about the wild antics that happen when a couple of ferocious creatures visit the big city.
Have you ever met someone that you didn't think you could be friends with, only to discover that once you got to know them, they became your best friend ever? That is what happens to Dog and Cat in this book. Dog is messy and Cat is organized. Cat won't stop primping and Dog won't stop howling. What will it take to bring Dog and Cat together?
Have you ever wondered what worms were good for? Or garbage? What about poop? The animal kind, that is. Old MacDonald wasn't always a farmer. In E-I-E-I-O, he gets some gardening advice from the little red hen, using things we think are pretty nasty, but in fact give him a flourishing garden and farm. Who knew a hen could be so smart?
Flight School by Lita Judge. Little Penguin wants to learn to fly, so he heads off to flight school to learn with the other birds. But everyone knows that penguins can't fly. But with a little practice and a lot of help from his friends, Little Penguin's dreams come true. Sort of. Watch for the zany twist at the end of the story as Little Penguin comes back to flight school with a friend.
Have you ever felt a little bit different than the rest of your family? Well, Gaston, a bulldog puppy raised by Mrs. Poodle, never thought he was different from his poodle siblings. He has a great time playing with his family, looks pretty in pink, and can even walk with grace. But all that changes when Mrs. Poodle takes her children to the park. There they meet Mrs. Bulldog and her puppies, which include a poodle named Antoinette. The dog families realize a mistake has been made. Will they make things right by switching, or will they be making a bigger mistake? Read Gaston by Kelly DiPuccio to find out.
Have you ever created something? Did you follow the directions that were given to you, or were you brave enough to add your own ideas? Going Places is a fun book about 2 friends who use their imaginations to make a school project even cooler than it already is. With their creative imaginations, they will soar above their classmates, surprising everyone who sees them. Read this book to learn more about what can happen when creative minds work together.
Why should the Easter Bunny get all the love? That's what Cat would like to know. So he decides to take over. He puts on a sparkly suit, jumps on his motorcycle, and roars off into the night. But it turns out delivering Easter eggs is hard work, and it doesn't leave much time for naps, of which Cat has taken 5, no 7. So when a pooped-out Easter Bunny shows up, And with a treat for Cat, what will Cat do?
The dog in this story believes he is his own master. It's good to be independent, but sometimes you have to rely on someone else's help for some things, like scratching pesky itches. If the dog really is his own master, how is he going to scratch the one spot on his back he can't reach? One adventurous day, he let a human scratch it, and the poor little fellow followed the dog home. To find out who really is a dog's best friend, read this clever story about a dog and his pet human.
Have you ever been afraid of something that you didn't know for sure was even there? Afraid to open your eyes in the dark? Afraid to look and see what might be happening? And It's an Orange Aardvark. 5 ants are very scared to look outside of their tree because of all the scary things they imagine in their mind. But when they gather their courage and look, you will be so surprised at what they find.
How would you feel if you were taken away from your family and home and sent thousands of miles away? What if your journey began with a friend, and then that friend dies and you're left all alone? Then imagine that you outgrew the house that you were living in and had to move to a large concrete room where people stared at you all day. This is exactly what happened to a gorilla named Ivan. Ripped from his family and home in Africa, he was brought to the United States as an attraction without any regard to his life and feelings. He may just be an animal, but animals have rights too. If you're interested in learning more about his 27 years living in captivity, then read Ivan, the remarkable true story of the shopping mall gorilla by Catherine Applegate.
Kid Sheriff and the Terrible Toads by Bob Shea, illustrated by Lane Smith. Drywater Gulch, a very spicy town, has a serious problem with toads, the Toad Brothers. They keep causing all kinds of mayhem and mischief for the town with their stealing, kidnapping, shoplifting, cattle kissing, and general foolishness. Just when the town is sure that nothing or no one can solve the toad problem, along comes a hero. His name is Ryan, he is 7, and he rides into town on a tortoise. Ryan knows little about the toads, but a lot about dinosaurs, and he uses what he knows to trick those ornery toads. To find out how Sheriff Ryan saves the day, read Kid Sheriff and the Terrible Toads. Canine pals Mr. Bud and Zorro encounter the cone. Mr. Bud and Zorro have an interesting past in learning to get along and making it through Zorro's new wardrobe. How will they handle Mr. Bud's latest predicament? The cone. Read Carter Goodwrench's book, Mr. Bud Wears the Cone, to see just what Mr. Bud and Zorro do to survive the cone.
Spying bananas on a neighboring island, Monkey has to devise a plan to cross the water to retrieve his meal. As he attempts to travel across the water, he encounters an additional obstacle. Shark! How will Monkey get to the bananas? Will he be successful? Read The Monkey Goes Bananas to See and be prepared to laugh out loud.
My Teacher is a Monster by Peter Brown. Have you ever had a teacher you couldn't stand? If you've ever had a teacher that was tough to take, then you know how frustrating it can be. In My Teacher is a Monster, Bobby gets stuck with Ms. Kirby, who yells all the time. When he has free time, he goes to the park so he can forget how terrible it is at school. Guess who he sees at the park one day? Ms. Kirby. Bobby is scared to ignore her, so he sits down and they begin to talk. Suddenly, a gust of wind comes up and takes her hat away, and Bobby learns that there is more to the monster than meets the eye. To find out what happens when Bobby hangs out with his teacher, the monster, for the day, read My Teacher is a Monster by Peter Brown.
What do you get when you combine bears, yaks, cats, pigs,
and an assortment of other animals. A big argument, especially when it comes to one enormous pair of underwear. If you like rhyming, counting, sharing, and underwear, you will absolutely love this silly story.
Have you ever found a nice cozy spot, maybe in the library, at your house? Somewhere you can read a book or draw. It looks so cozy that your sister or someone in your class comes to share it with you. Then someone else comes, and pretty soon you are crowded and it isn't so cozy anymore. That is what happens to the bird in this story. You might just decide sharing your cozy spot with your friends is okay after all.
Hello, I am new here, and I like to play.
Would you be Peanut Butter's friend, even if you were an egg, spaghetti, hot dog, or a cupcake? Even though we are all different, we can still be friends. Read this fun book to find out how Peanut Butter finds his perfect match and also finds other friends along the way.
A piece of cake. Mouse has baked a special treat for Little Bird's birthday, but delivering it to his friend isn't easy. Not when everyone he meets along the way offers to trade something for a piece of the cake. What will Mouse do? What will the animals offer in exchange for a piece of cake? Read this book to discover just what happens with Mouse and his friends.
This is one brave little dog. Imagine being on the streets of Paris during World War I, all alone and hungry. Suddenly, sirens blare and you take shelter in an empty doorway. A man appears from out of nowhere and steps on your paw. Ouch! Luckily for you, he is a friendly man and very sorry for hurting you. He scoops you up in his arms, and life as you know it is about to change. If you like history and stories about brave animals, Rags, hero dog of World War I, will have you hooked from start to finish.